Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me today for this discussion. As was introduced, our panel today is going to focus on the topic of energy and innovation. Clearly a critical topic, particularly as it comes to a discussion around SDG 11 and the creation of sustainable communities and cities for the future of our world. Our panelists today come from public sector, private sector, and international bodies. And so I would like to start by asking each of you this question, which is, as you think from your role as an actor in this system, public, private sector, as well as international organizations, how do you support each other in creating innovative partnerships to actually improve urban planning, renewable energy, as well as promoting sustainable communities and cities? Your Excellency, if we can begin with you, please. I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. I think a couple of keywords from what you've given us as an introduction over here. You talked about public, private, and also partnership, and I would like to add to it the fourth P, which is people. And I would like to draw the attention towards citizen-centric over here and achieving the ultimate goal of individual aspirations around it. So if you think of that and bring the different stakeholders and try to draw the map between their aspirations and also as a stakeholder what they want to achieve over here, I think you can easily find a common ground. That common ground would be achieving, I would say, resilience, inclusive, and also equitable cities that can achieve the target of SDGs for 2030.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think that raises some very interesting points about how all four of these pieces need to work together in order to actually make measurable achievements, as His Excellency was speaking about in his opening remarks. Your Excellency, Mukara, would you please add your thoughts to this topic?
Thank you. So naturally, we think that working together is very, very important. Starting from I'd say, introducing in the work of arena more substantially the presence of all the stakeholders involved in the energy transition from our side. So we also been able to change a little bit also the governance of the agency itself, introducing this collaborative framework on all the topics that are relevant for the energy transition, where government official, private sector, stakeholders, NGOs, people can be part of this process. We have also in our work the Coalition for Action that put together more than 130 players in the energy transition. And in the way to the COP28, starting from the work we have done with the Egypt presidency of COP27, we are working to bring other partnership with the Alliance for Industrial Decarbonization, with the Global Offshore Winds Alliance, with the Livelihoods Initiative that I think Dr. Nawal will talk more about this after me. And we also have been able to link with the public in some way, so with the UN system. And we have launched a few compacts. The arena is working on many areas of this, from the green hydrogen, from the health facilities, with the least developed country, with the seeds. All of this happening during the summit in 2019, and we are working on that. So we think that it's crucial that all energy can be put together and working for the energy transition.
Thank you, Francesco. Dr. Nawal, I will let you lead into this with this wonderful introduction.
Thank you so much, and it's actually amazing. I have to start by saying welcome to the UAE in person. This is like such an amazing day for all of us. I think His Excellency Yunus has summarized it very, very well. We cannot innovate if we don't have the right ecosystem, and the right ecosystem cannot be created if we don't have a multi-stakeholders ecosystem that enable us to basically leverage our strength and work together towards something that is bring us together, and global challenges is historically what brought us all together. So I think we definitely need to have that ecosystem, and each one of us have a role to play in that equation, either if it's private sector, international organization, government, or people themselves, because we are driven by people and our solutions has to be people-centric. So, we are united by the challenges. We need to be united as we seek a solution, but we need to be united in identifying where and how we can contribute and ensure that, treating all those with the same equal way of looking at the challenges, but also understand that we all bring something to the table when we discuss those solutions. And innovation definitely a key when it comes to addressing our global challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Nawal. Manish?
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for the welcome. It's a privilege to be here on behalf of Schneider Electric. Our purpose is to empower all to make the most of their resources, bridging sustainability and progress for all. And when we say that, it is only possible when we work collectively together across the ecosystem, as very well said. Also, what we see is that the world is becoming more and more digital, which means it's becoming more and more open, more and more transparent, and therefore we have to exchange, we have to share our learnings so that we can collectively make an impact. There's also a large part of the world that we are talking at the time of, which needs a lot of energy inclusion, and therefore those challenges can only be solved when we are working together and putting people, as you rightly said, at the center of it.
Thank you, Manish. I think we've raised a couple of very interesting points already around the need for collaboration, the role of different stakeholders within this, and obviously one of the things that the Global Council has done is to actually bring together many of the different players across these different stakeholders to really form actionable plans. And so, Your Excellency, if I may ask you, you are the Vice Chair of the Global Council on SDG 11. What do you think has been the most significant outcome of the Council to date? And I think a follow-on to that would be, how then does this lead into COP28 later this year, and how you expect to magnify that impact looking forward?
Absolutely. I think a lot of great outcomes that's been led through the Global Councils for SDG 11 and with the contribution of the council members that we have together with us on it. Our focus has always been around three main areas, one of which is thought leadership. And I think what a wonderful platform we have over here when we are exchanging all of the thoughts that we have in our hands. So the council have put a piece of report together. We call it City Insight Report. The intention of the City Insight Report is to give us the current state of urban developments that's happening around us for sustainable communities and cities. It's also showcasing the future state of successful models that we need to have in place, where it's making our cities more resilient and prepare us for any, I would say, circumstances that we might be in, such as pandemics or so on. Last but not least, through the report over here, we are focusing into bringing and showcasing the most successful projects that we have globally around sustainable developments in cities and communities. All of that report, the report will be launched actually in March, and I welcome the members and the people who are interested around how to achieve the SDG 11s to have a look at the report and to be with us as part of celebrating and getting access to the insights. And I'm glad that you have asked about COP28 over here. I think leading towards the synergy of that we've tried to create through building that report is also addressing another problem, and that becomes the second theme of the activity that we do in SDG 11, which is access to finance. A lot of, I would say, delay into achieving the objectives is due to the lack of access to finance. Over here, we've worked also to make sure that we do have the necessary projects and build the necessary synergy between the different teams to work to make sure that projects that are delivering on urban developments get access to the right finance from investments and also grants that are available over here. I hope later this year in COP28, through the collaborations that we have so far, we deliver an astonishing project over there. When it will be launched over there, it will give a unique stance for the people who wants to get access to finance to have the right tools in hand and understand how to facilitate that.
I think it's a very exciting opportunity to amplify some of those programs, and certainly you raised this point that you've raised around the access to finance being critical. It's critical not just for facilitating energy transition, but also facilitating the innovation to enable a just and balanced energy transition, because right now, as we know, the cost of renewable energy is significant, and many of our emerging economies are not yet in a place where they can afford the investments necessarily required for some of those renewable energies, and so they look to less expensive hydrocarbon-based energy sources to facilitate some of their economic growth and development. Francesco, I think one question, and I would like to hear your thought on that, is, when we think about SDG 7 specifically, what are the actions and priorities that we need, not just to spread renewable energy and other technologies to facilitate this to developed economies, but also to the emerging economies where we have to help them step faster through this transition in some ways to both keep their economic development moving, but also ensure that we're limiting the impact on the global environment?
First, it's my duty to slightly amend what you say, because today renewables are the most convenient way to produce electricity in 90% of the world. So it's not expensive to go for renewable. It's expensive to stay in a centralized fossil fuel system. So just to clarify my position on that, I think it's my task to be precise on that. On SDG 7, unfortunately, as been already said, we are not on track. We are not on track, unfortunately, for almost all SDGs. How we can do that? We need a disruptive change. So we have to be honest that it will be extremely difficult to get there. And also we feel the need to give meaning to this word of words of the just transition that we need to have. And making clear that the just transition is a very holistic concept. It's not just that we have to give a new job for people that are losing job. Just transition means a transfer from a system that is high and equal to a system that is less unequal. I don't want to say more just. I don't think it doesn't say. I think we cannot say more just in language, but we can say less unequal. And for going in that direction, we think that moving to the new energy system that will be based on renewables as is happening, unfortunately not at the speed and scale needed, complemented by hydrogen, mainly green hydrogen, sustainable use of biomass, is the way forward to ensure that we can be at least get closer to the achievement of the SDG goal and closer to the at least keeping alive the goals of the Paris Agreement, and also provide more opportunity as less inequality in the world. I just want to wish one thing in 30 seconds, sorry if I've been so long, is that investing in just transition in renewables means only to decentralize the supply chain. I think investing in Africa by the developed country will mean reduce dependency. Be present in storage, batteries. In the developing world means to give more people, more entities beyond the market and reduce the risk to fall into dependence in the future.
Thank you, Francesco. And actually, I think this leads very well into my question for you, Dr. Nawal, which is, you hear a lot these days, globally, countries, private sector that are pledging to achieve net zero. And Francesco has just spoken about sort of this critical step change that we need to make in order to achieve that. And so my question, following on his comments to you, is, are we actually being realistic about some of these pledges? And if we're not, what do we need to do differently?
I don't think we have a choice but to be ambitious towards those targets. So it's not a matter of, should we do it or not do it? I think we definitely need to do it. I think we need to find ways to make it happen, and we do that by what His Excellency has mentioned. We need to understand and push for technology advancement. We need to understand that we need to mobilize finance. Green finance should not be this concept that we speak about remotely. green finance needs to be the norm. That's something that we don't even discuss. That should be the norm. We should understand that we all partners in this, private and public, and of course with the enablement of the non-state actors, we all need to be part of that equation. So are we doing enough? Maybe not. Should we do more? Absolutely. Francesco mentioned how much, how renewables now became in many countries actually cheaper than normal or traditional energy. But why we are not doing more? We need to understand those reasons and mobilize action. So what is really a cause for me of optimism is that it's not only governments now looking at net zero or moving towards more sustainable operations for the benefits of their countries and their economies, but companies and private sector are seeing the importance of this because there is a correlation between being more sustainable in your operation, being more sustainable in your operation and your approach, and being profitable. So now it became, literally, it makes financial sense. I started my career with Masdar, and when we looked into ESG within our own operations, it was very easy for me to convince our CFO and our CEO to adapt those strategies because it made commercial sense. So are we realistic? We need to be a little bit more ambitious, if I put it this way. I think we need to move quicker than the targets that we put to ourselves, and we can only do that by ensuring we have the right policies in place, ensuring that we are pushing for the right technologies, and enabling finance in the right way and back to what Francesco mentioned, it's about the just transition. So not one equation applies to all, not one approach applies to all. We need to understand how different regions have different ways and different priorities, and how we can make it a just for all, not just for a segment of our people.
Thank you, Dr. Nawal. This leads actually nicely, Manish, into a question I wanted to pose to you, which is, as Schneider Electric, obviously you are bringing many technologies, solutions into the marketplace. And these are some of the technologies and solutions that are going to enable this transition. So what are some of the key innovations that you're currently witnessing today in the markets where you're operating that are helping to drive clean energy projects and the overall energy transition?
Oh, thank you, Elena. So, there is a lot of work happening here. What we see is that while there are things that we are working on the supply side, we also need to look at the demand side. And there's a long-term technology evolution which is going to happen mostly around supply. But what we truly believe is that demand management is something that can happen today, and there are technologies available that would help drive energy efficiency. And in line with that, I would say that there are several trends, but maybe I'll call out two of them. One is we are seeing a lot of the growth of prosumer, which is that there is, whether you're an airport or a building like this or homes, you are doing your own self-generation, and you're generating power for your own consumption, whereas also for storing it for later use, as well as then feeding it back to the grid. And this is something that is happening everywhere across. A case in point is Australia, where today the distributed generation is on rooftop is as much as the utility scale generation that happens. So that is a big trend, and therefore, in order to prepare for this, what we see is that the second trend is around digitization, which is really taking shape and accelerating. The big change that is happening in the energy industry is that it's not just I would say on the electricity industry is not just about hardware, but it's a combination of hardware and software that is going to change the way we do things. Today, if we want to drive energy efficiency, it has to be digital, and which is giving us a complete end-to-end view of doing things, and therefore acting on it by by monitoring, by controlling, and all of this, by measuring, monitoring, and controlling, and all of this can be done digitally, remotely, and this is something that we all have seen is the benefit, and therefore we are able to drive carbon neutrality or reduction in carbon consumption. I can give an example of work that we are doing very close to the region in Egypt with the distribution company, the Egypt Distribution Control Center program, where we are helping digitize the complete flow of electricity through the distribution control towers, which are going to help optimize the consumption of electricity and therefore drive reduction in carbon emissions.
I think that's
just to name a few.
Yeah, I think that's some very good examples. And Your Excellency, I'm sure you have some thoughts as well on the importance of digital skills and digitization in your role at the Dubai Digital Authority and Dubai Data Establishment, on the critical role that I think Manish has articulated so nicely, that some of those capabilities and skills need to play to further advance the energy transition and further advance sustainable cities and communities. I don't know if you have any thoughts you'd like to add to that.
Well, I'm glad that you've mentioned digitization over here, and I think this is a great enablement that we have in our hand that can be used across industries, across sectors of economy, and also across all of the SDG councils and the objectives that we have in our hand. With technology, we can do so much better. With technology, we can unlock a lot of opportunities that we have in our hand if it is used right. And I think over here is we need to redirect the right resources towards the right directions. And us as a human, we need to be very clear on the end goal that we want to achieve through digitization. It's not enough to digitize things. It needs to be very clear on why do we do that? Why are we doing that? Digital skills today has a huge gap, which we need to realize, and then we need to know how do we address it. Modern technologies requires different skill sets, different understandings of how do we today embed those kind of skills within the curriculums that we have in our hand, and universities and education systems that we have in our hand. And it requires a collective efforts to make sure that we have enough knowledge that's being put in ground. But one thing which is very promising is that it's unlocking a lot of opportunities in hand.
Yeah, I think I was having a very interesting discussion before today's events began about exactly the need to create and cultivate some of these digital skill sets in our youth, and how important it is not just for the energy sector and the energy transition, but in general from a broad-based skill set. We have to be at the forefront of many of these technologies and skills in order to remain competitive. Francesco, I would like to actually turn to you quickly because we're talking about digital skills in youth. And, of course, one of the council's SDG 7 has taken a very interesting position on the importance of youth and their voices, their concerns. And it would be great to hear just a little bit more from you about the direction that your council is taking when it comes to the youth population.
So, naturally, all of us, we have been young. I'm still young, but
we all are.
I remember that when I was listening to the music, my father often come to my room and say, "Francesco, but what does it mean all this?" You know? I thought that my father in that moment was not really open to understand why I like that music and why I listen to music so loudly. So it's inevitable that we have to find a way for the young people to be listened. I'm not the one that like to have photo with the young, showing that I'm doing something with the young people. I'm engaged to understand how better we can make them having an impact on our work. Because they will not become the government. The government is something else. They are young people that want to express their opinion on the future. We have to find a way to make this happening without confusing roles, but we respect all of us engaged in this work. In this logic, when I started my tenure in ARENA, my first tenure, one of the first steps was to have the youth engaged in the General Assembly. Do you remember, Dr. Nawal? We have the first of this occasion. And we are still trying to find a better way to engage themselves. So having the intergenerational council could be a way to find way to make them more part of the decision-making process without taking out the responsibilities of who are really in charge of it. So we have had the experience of the General Assembly every year, but we are trying to also to have a periodical meeting on specific items with young people. We have this occasion also in Rwanda, in for all the meeting. So we have to understand, again, without confusing the role, what is the best way to do. And we have also encouraged, I think I've seen some students here at New York University that are working on preparing also the presence of the young people for the COP28. And I think it's a very good initiative of the presidency coming to be so inclusive in this process. We have to understand that this could be also opportunity for having a small training of young people. I've been recently in India. It was amazing to see what the young people has been able to do with startup, serving and providing service through renewables. So all this is something that is happening, and always we have to try to adapt and find the best way to deal with the young people in a way that also we have provided a toolkit for let the young people to be the trainer of the other young people. And I have to say, and I finish with this, I was interested in that, ARENA is global. Now we are 168 countries, member states, and plus the European Union, but we still have a bunch of countries, 16, 20, I don't remember now exactly the name. But summer now is coming in, and you know where? Where the young people has been more active.
That's great.
I conclude with this.
It's an excellent conclusion. Thank you, Francesco. In our last few minutes, I would like to pose one final question to all of our panelists. And if Your Excellency, if I may begin with you, please. As we lead up to COP28, what do you believe is the most critical technology shift that will lead the new frontier of energy and help us to redesign the future of our world?
Well, there are a lot of technology investments, and there is an array of technologies that's going to come, and every day we hear about a new technology that's out. I think we are all hearing about ChatGPT-3 and what that is doing, and I think that showcases that the array is not going to ever end. However, there are favorable ones that we need to highlight over here, which really has an impact on us. One is, I think, autonomous cars and the impact that it can bring to the roads in terms of how much it can reduce the traffic and make people's life more seamless when they are traveling, but most importantly, reducing fatalities or accidents. And in some cases, it can reach up to 90% over there. So this is one I think we need to keep an eye on. A second is definitely, I think we've heard all about metaverse and what metaverse can bring. I think we are just scratching the surface in terms of what it can do, and understand and realize perhaps when we have the right skills in the youngest generation, they can tell us more about how they can adopt such a technologies. We're still yet not there to imagine how much it can change in the life, but I think until COP28 we will see a lot of advancements happening, and that has also a positive impact towards the digital economy, and I think economically this is something that we keep an eye on. Last but not least, and I think this is dear to my heart, being in this industry of digitization, that more and more platforms that are coming up, those platforms that are impacting our lives positively, but yet it's also adding a lot of jobs and it's creating a lot of jobs in the economy. Platforms like Amazon, platforms like Uber, platforms like Airbnb, and so on. I think those are great commerce platforms that's providing a lot of challenges. I think until COP28, we'll see a lot of new platforms emerges over here, and I think we need to encourage as much as possible these kind of peer-to-peer digital platforms that's creating a positive impact. We've seen how much it have affected life positively during the pandemic. It has been kind of, I would say, a life jacket for everyone to make sure that they can continue their life. And I'm sure more of those platforms will continue into enhancing our lives. And I think the question is, what are we doing in order to make sure that those kind of platforms are really enabled and it's changing the way that we are living over here, making it more seamless, more safe, and creating that kind of, I would say, an impactful experience where every individual is touched and feel it, that this is the new modern life I would like to have from here onwards.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Manish, your thoughts on?
Well, I would say two things. First is, as a champion of energy efficiency, I would still say that it's more of demand side management that we need to do. The best energy is the negawatt, which is the energy that we don't consume. And that is that much less we need to supply, that much, and that is that much less of carbon dioxide that we need to consume. So technologies exist today, and let's adopt those technologies. Now, in having said that, I think what we also need to do is to have we talk about energy transition, digital transition. I think we need to talk about mindset transition. Yeah, and this is something that we have seen as we come out of the pandemic, is that we adopted the technologies after, because we were forced to. Now here we have the technologies right now. Let's do it now. And no better place than this region, which had the COP27 and now is going to have COP28. So building on what is there for the future, how do we scale? But that change of mindset, that mindset transition, is, I think, something that is very critical to how we go forward.
Thank you, Manish. Francesco?
Naturally, we all are waiting for the COP28. I think the COP27 has been able to change the mood of the COP, where the implementation action is more relevant. So I think that we are moving in that direction, at least is what we have understood from the UA presidency. The most important to say from a procedural aspect will be the stock-taking exercise. And they will have two main objectives. The first is to understand where we are. And the response will be, we are not in track. But it's not ARENA or other agency that is saying that. When it will be said by the UNFCCC, it will mean that we are not in track. So the COP should also say very clearly how we can close the gap between where we are and where we should be. And I think that we need, at least this is our opinion, to make prevail a new narrative. In some way, the change of mindset, but perhaps a wider concept of that, where we have to link very closely development and the moving to the new energy system, and where we have to understand that the actual system is working because along the year there's been an infrastructure that has been able to support the existing system. And when we talk about infrastructure, I mean the logistic, means that the legal and policy area, means the institutional capacity, means the professional skill. Now this has to be adapted to support the new energy system coming. So we will try to work as ARENA on building this new narrative, to present to the presidency, to present to our member states, and see if it is possible to make the COP28 making the definitive switch to accelerating the transition. I want to be very frank when closing this. It will be very difficult. We are not in track, and it's very difficult to put both back in track. It will need an enormous efforts. But building a new narrative is the unique step that we can take to move the world into the right direction.
Thank you, Francesco. Dr. Nawal.
We at the UAE, we have defined, or we have been always looking at those challenges as opportunities. And I think one of the things that we look at as we move to COP28 is there's going to be the COP for solutions. And solutions cannot be without technology. So back to your questions about what do I think, or what do we think is going to be kind of the silver bullet, I think we will need to really have a lot of advancement in technology. I think what we are looking at with great optimism is going to be storage solutions and clearly hydrogen. So, and we know that, once we put the focus on those technologies, I guess renewables, to your point, now they are financially visible, but then, their challenges and implementation can be mitigated. So I would say all the above, and real focus on technologies to advance renewables. Demand side management definitely key, but we cannot achieve net zero without having renewable energy. And renewable energy is going to be really, really big and have a great share of the solutions as we move towards COP28.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Nawal. And that concludes our panel, and I would just like to take a moment to thank all of you for your insights today. I think we've covered on a very wide range of topics, from the sort of critical step change that we need to take to the importance of youth, to the critical nature of facilitating financing in order to enable technology and innovation to solve the challenges that we have ahead.
I think the one thing we missed, and I hope we don't miss it in any other panels, is gender and women related and inclusion when it comes to solutions. Because while I'm happy we have 2 women on this panel, luckily not only the moderator, I would like to see that in all the panels, because we cannot reach solutions with half of our population. We definitely need to have an inclusive one.